All right, good afternoon, folks. I wanted to start this series where I'm gonna kind of cook for you some easy meal prep ideas for the week. I know probably a lot of my viewers are busy professionals, maybe busy parents, and you're looking for ways to, I guess, make the best of your time. And I think meal prepping is always a great idea, especially if you're really busy. You don't have to cook during the week, especially if you're working long hours or you're busy as a mom or a parent. And so today's recipe is going to be very, 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 very basic. I'm basically cooking a roast beef. And like you might say, Julian, roast beef is pretty complex, or it's complicated. Isn't that like a special occasion dish? I would like to counter, roast beef is probably one of the easiest things you can cook. Maybe another controversial opinion, steak is probably one of the easiest things you can cook as well. And so we're basically starting at the basics here. So what I have right in front of me, I have a nice piece of top round steak. You'll see I can move some of these, kind of bring these closer to the camera. Yeah, just got a big old honkin' piece of top round steak. Whoops. Right here. Basic top round steak. It was on sale at my local grocer for about, I believe it was $3 a pound, which is a pretty good deal. I haven't seen it gone down to $2 yet. But yeah, top round is a pretty lean cut of beef. Usually they have these at, if you grew up like in the 90s or early 2000s like I did, you've probably been to like a brunch buffet or even like Golden Corral buffet restaurants of that sort, and they'll often have a carving station with one of these leaner cuts of beef. It's a pretty economical cut. The thing about this cut of beef is you don't want to cook it too well done because it'll get really dry. So sorry folks for those viewers who are watching who like well done meat. I'm sorry, this is probably not the recipe for you. But that being aside, roast beef is probably one of the easiest things to cook in the oven. So aside from my beef, I have some oil, which you'll need to brush the meat with, and a spice rub. Now, I kind of went a little bit complex with this spice rub, or relatively complex. It's not that complex, but it might be for some folks. It's comprised of onion powder. You have some garlic powder, or granulated garlic rather. Salt, a little bit of salt, not much. We have slap ya mama. This is Cajun seasoning, which is basically garlic, red chili powder, salt, black pepper, maybe some other stuff. Freshly cracked black pepper, of course, and a little bit of ground mustard. Now, for your spice rub, you can really put anything in it. If you want to go really basic, you could honestly just add salt. I wouldn't recommend this though. If you want to go maybe a step above super basic, at least salt, pepper, and garlic will do. And then you can kind of add layers of flavor to that. Some tips. So instead of just taking the beef out of the fridge and sticking it right in the oven after you dress it with oil and your powder, the first thing you want to do is, one, dry brine. The thing about dry brining is that it's going to allow the meat to brown better and for the meat to have better moisture retention. What exactly is dry brining? Well, it's kind of what it sounds like. You're basically just applying salt liberally to all sides of this meat. You put it in the fridge, uncovered, and not sealed in any bag or any container. And you let the salt do its work, basically drawing out some of the moisture and penetrating the meat, kind of seasoning it as well. You do this for about 8 to 48 hours, and you kind of get something like this. Another tip, after you do the dry brine, take your meat out of the fridge and let it sit for 1 hour at least at room temperature. This will allow for a more even cook. It's the same principle when you grill steaks. You don't want to take a steak right out of the fridge and slap it on the grill or slap it in your hot frying pan. You want it to sit to get to an even room temperature, just so that there's an even cook. So those are my pro tips. I'm gonna go ahead and baste this bad boy and then stick it in the oven, and we'll see how it turns out. So let's go ahead and first start with the basting process. You're gonna wanna coat the steak in a pretty neutral tasting oil. So since this is gonna be roasted in the oven, not at super high heat, you don't really need a high smoke point oil. Like olive oil will do just fine. I have a light tasting olive oil. I think it's Bel Oleo, which I buy at Costco here up in Western Washington. You should probably be able to find it nationwide. I think they stock that oil nationwide, but I could be wrong. I know Costco sometimes their stock is pretty regionalized, and so you may or may not be able to find it. So right now I'm just going and kind of, dusting this meat, or not dusting, I'm more painting this meat with this oil. This will help the seasoning stick a little bit more to the top round, and you want to oil it on all sides. All right, she's nicely painted up, so I'm going to go ahead and put the seasoning. And you want to rub this seasoning into the meat, and be liberal with it. Like, I didn't give any measurements because this is one of the things where I think you need to kind of develop as a cook. You have to develop a sense of ratio yourself, and I think that comes from trial and error. Probably you can Google online to see what spice rub, if you're very by the book and you want to get exact ratios on a spice rub, you could do that, but I advocate just seasoning to taste. All right, next thing's next. You're gonna put this at the oven. I have the rack at the center, and it's at 325 Fahrenheit. I don't know what that is in Celsius. The key is to leave this in the oven for 12 to 15 minutes per pound of meat. So this is about 3.2 pounds. That's about 45 minutes or so if we do the upper bound. And yeah, we'll check on this in the time that I need to check on this. All right, y'all, it's been about much longer than I anticipated, about an hour and 45 minutes for this 3-pound guy that I pulled out of the oven. I stuck the meat thermometer in. The reading is not what you want it to be right now, but I got to a nice 134 Fahrenheit, which is about medium rare temp that you want when you do a roast beef. And so now it's just time to let this guy rest for about 30 minutes, and we can go ahead and get slicing. All right, y'all, it's moment of truth. Time to carve her up. I got my really sharp Mac knife. It's kind of inverted right now. MAC on Amazon. Very sharp Japanese chef's knife. I really like this blade. It cuts through like pork belly and like skin and flesh like really, really well. But let's go ahead and see how this guy turned out. I'm kind of curious on the result. Oh my gosh, and I love this knife. See how easy it cuts? Alrighty. Alright, so a little more cooked than I wanted. This is closer probably to a medium well. I was aiming for a medium rare, but you live and you learn. I think it's been a while since I've done a roast. Oh man, look at those juices squirting. I'm gonna continue carving. But yeah, I think this is an economical way to kind of meal prep, is to basically do one big protein prep on the weekend, and then you can basically just reheat this, like make some carbohydrates, and yeah, like you'd be good for the week. So this is more what I'm looking for, probably closer to medium. I think if I go deeper, it's gonna be medium rare. But yeah, I just wanted to show you all how this turned out. And this looks pretty good. I'm gonna enjoy.